Yo, what's good, Joe? It's your man, Bigga P, and I just want to share my thoughts on the Floyd Mayweather Manny Pacquiao card from last night. Um, I will say this before. Well, actually, no. I'll go into the fights in itself. First fight that they actually showed on the card was Vasyl Lomachenko versus Gamaliel Rodriguez, and first of all, it was odd to me, considering that Lomachenko he's one of the featherweight champions. He's the WBO featherweight champion. So when the undercard for this was announced, I assumed that this would probably be the fight that would be before Floyd Manny. So imagine my surprise, because the other fight was LSC versus Kitano, and I'm like, I can miss some of that because frankly, I'm not interested in watching LSC beat up on a insurance selling brickler, which would something like that, which is what dude actually was. But I actually like to watch Lomachenko fight. I do think he's talented, and I do think he's extremely talented in a way. Although I'm still a little salty what he did to my boy Gary Russell, but that's all right because Gary Russell got himself a belt now. So saying so a rematch can happen, and then Gary can beat that ass properly. But that's here or there. That's just here or there. But yeah, I was kind of pissed too because I was going to go grab a pizza, for my fight party, and and that fight was going on. I'm like, fuck. I have to miss a couple rounds to go grab my food. So I was not happy of that fight actually being first. The fight itself was pretty much a showcase of why Lomachenko has gotten the hype. Dude probably has some of the best footwork in the game today, and it's fluid. It's like extremely fluid. Like if you ever trained at the gym, and if you have footwork is essential. Without footwork, you can only go so far. um, Although some people do actually go a lot farther than they should have, but like I said, that's boxing. But dude is extremely fluid with everything he does, from his movements to his combinations. Um, going to the body. Although the fight did get a little bit, I started getting a little bit dirty with the low blows and stuff. I think it was starting my where both of them weren't really watching weight or where they were actually punching. But save for a competitive first round, which I managed to see a little bit later. Pretty much it was just all Lomachenko going until the ninth round, and like I said, dude looked spectacular and just pretty much overwhelming Rodriguez. Um, so yeah, like I said, it was pretty much like I said, it was pretty much just a display of Vasyl's uh, abilities, which I rank very high as a fighter. Um, Rodriguez was game, but like I said, he really didn't belong in the ring with him that night. Um, beating Orlando Cruz, doesn't really doesn't really warrant that. But like I said, at least he made an effort of it. Um, now where he actually goes, hopefully it goes towards to facing one of the other featherweight champions. Like I said, I would love to see a rematch with Gary Russell, and or go after Nicholas Walters. Gradovich, I know he's fighting a little bit later on this month, so we'll see where he goes after after he fights Selby. But I only wish that fight should have been the fight before the main event, because those seats look empty as hell during that fight, and Lomachenko does deserve that attention. Which brings me to the next fight, which for whatever reason was put um, as the fight before the main event. And for the life of me, I don't understand I don't understand LSC and Heyman's relationships. So, I know it's like father and son, but LSC is probably more than any other fighter other than maybe Floyd Mayweather, has reaped the rewards of being a Heyman fighter. It's amazing that dude gets paid what he gets paid, and he faces like lawnmowers, photographers, landscapers, and these are legit occupations of the people he's facing, which is mind-boggling to me how he gets away with this time and time again. But it was his first. I guess this is he's making his featherweight debut. His katana. I mean, the only thing I knew about him was pretty much he's your typical Mexico journeyman. Now, LSC had size advantages over him, and I expected him, pretty much to stop him. For the life of me, why this was the fight that went the distance, I don't know. I do not know. But what it was, it was a buzzkill of a fight. Pretty much being, my boy and his lady friend or whatever. We were just talking about that. Granted, LSC was, he was landing some shots at him, but dude was tough. And I think, and more importantly, I think that fight itself probably, in a way, exploited several weaknesses of LSC, and they were pretty blatant to me. For the fact that LSC never once changed his strategy, pretty much because LSC's thing is volume punching, and then that's how he got rid of. That's how he pretty much gets rid of a lot of his opponents. He's a decent puncher, but it's the volume puncher that overwhelms people. Caetano pretty much was nullifying that by actually staying in the pocket and countering him, which I actually found interesting. And Caetano was taking some shots too. He was taking some shots, but another thing too is he wasn't stunned. I don't think I saw him stunned once. He didn't go down. He wasn't cut. Usually LC's opponents look like they've been, they went the old school 15 after he's done with them because he wears them out the way he does. But this one tough journeyman, just like him, he stood in the pocket, he countered him, he moved like LSC when he was planting his feet trying to throw his combinations. Dude, just literally lateral movement was, was befuddling him, and especially in the last round. When they went to round 9 and round 10, we're like, are you kidding me? LC hasn't gotten rid of him yet. And like I said, Caetano's movement was just so, it was so profound. It pretty much stifled LC because LC couldn't, he couldn't stay on his feet and throw his combinations. And you do that to more, and to the more of the elite featherweights, pretty much now more than ever. I'm thinking to myself, if Duda actually stayed at 122, I'd either face Frampton or Rigo. They would have ate him for lunch with that. I've never seen such he was so one-dimensional, and top of that, he couldn't even adjust. Like I said, at 126, it also seemed like there may have been a drop of power because, like I said, that guy he faced was a guy that was probably meant to. That was probably paid just to be a career opponent. To eventually fold after a couple rounds. But dude lasted the distance. That type of fighter shouldn't really last a distance, especially with the size advantages that he had. But I'll give Caetano props for, like I said, because his boxing skills, and there were some, but unfortunately the power was not there behind it. But his boxing skills kept him in that fight and made LSC look foolish. But, like I said, there's nothing more. It was a showcase, and it was a buzzkill of a showcase. But LSC, if he thinks he's going to make any noise, and he thinks he's going to throw any of the featherweight champions, no, that's not going to happen. Not with that performance. Dude's going to need a lot more seasoning before I even think he's going to be competitive with any of them. But that's just my opinion. I also think that this fight should have been on a pay-per-view. In fact, technically, it was supposed to be a TMT fighter. The logical choice was, Mickey Bay. But unfortunately, I think he had some issues with one of his fights getting put together, and it went to purse bid, and it was a lot lower than what Mickey Bay was originally offered. So he wasn't going to fight on the card or whatever. But yeah, LSC didn't belong on this card at all, and he did nothing to actually up his profile. If anything, he's starting to show signs of regressing, because when you fight that level of competition for so long, you're not learning anything. You're not learning anything. You're not improving anything. You're just doing one thing. You're just sticking to one thing because you think it's the most successful. Because you have no reason to change it, and that's going to cost them one day. I don't know how soon it's going to cost them, depending if if they get that fight with Mares or whatever. But it's going to cost them because he's not upping his competition like he should have. So yeah, and like I said, I give props to Katana for going the distance and pretty much using his boxing skills, even though he didn't have the punch to stay in the fight. That and a good chin. So kudos to him. Which brings us to our main event, the most anticipated main event in probably 10 years. Well, no, not 10 years, probably 13 years since Tyson Lewis. Floyd Mayweather versus Manny Pacquiao. I mean, there's pretty much a whole bunch of scenarios in this fight. I mean, is Floyd too old? Can Floyd handle the power? Can Manny overcome Floyd's size advantages, the reach advantages? Can he actually outbox? Can he actually, on activity, outwork Floyd? There was a whole bunch of questions going around in this fight. And I will say this, though. Manny, probably with the exception of possibly Jose Luis Castillo, it took Floyd longer to actually figure out Manny, to really figure out Manny, than I did, than his other opponents that he's faced. And mostly because there was a lot of tentative stuff going on. Floyd, pretty much Floyd, his movement was there. He immediately started going to the body. And when Pac got him in the ropes to start flooring, he clinched him intelligently. And these were pretty much the earlier rounds. However, I noticed though Senior was not too happy about his performance because I know there was multiple rounds where the dude was Floyd come back to the corner and Floyd was like screaming at him like, you gotta do more than that, because judges they see that and they're like, hey, this guy doesn't want to engage and fight. And then afterwards, Manny won a couple. Then Manny I think won the fourth round decisively, and then there were a couple of rounds there that were pretty. Some were Floyd, and some where you could say, hey, maybe it's a swing depending on how you actually want to do it. It's either do you want to do the activity for Manny, or do you want to do the connect rate, connect percentage for Floyd, who's landing clean shots. But pretty much by 9 and 10, Floyd had Manny figured out. Figured out pretty good, and I think at that time, Manny just pretty much he was from tired of the clinching. He started getting a little gun shy because I think he was just worried about getting caught with a shot. But then after that, it was pretty much it was boxing 101. Floyd using his fundamentals to completely nullify Pac and cruise to the decision. My score itself was 116, 112, 8-4. Pretty much I think I gave the swing rounds to Manny. I think there were two that I say Manny won for, and then I gave the swing rounds to him. So and I know people were like 116, 112, but then people were like were a little bit kind of dumbfounded by the 118, 110, which like I said. It could, could have easily been C2 because, like I said, it depends on those swing rounds. Like, who would you actually, send? Who would you have to give that round to? Yeah, like I said, I can't knock it. Like I said, Floyd. There were talks of Floyd knocking Manny. I didn't think that was going to happen. Not at this point. I just don't see it because in order for that to happen, Floyd would have to open himself up a little bit more than that because he was not going to get rid of. I don't think he has the hands really to get rid of to get rid of Manny. So pretty much yeah. Floyd goes to 48-0 and he picks up the WBO belt, and now pretty much to me officially is the best fighter of his generation. He's the lineal welterweight champion, and then my thoughts is he should go after Kell Brook and actually just unify the belts, get all 4 belts if he wants to do in the last fight, and then retire. Just do that. That's to me that's the best thing he can actually do. And if you do this, like knock off the last remaining champion, it's not like it's a fight that can't be made. Showtime, you go to England, if you want to end out your career there, and pick him apart, and grab his belt and just be undisputed You know, because I don't think. I mean, it's been a while since the welterweight belts have been since probably what it's Corey Spinks or Zab Judah. No, Zab Judah is probably the last person, but then he didn't really hold the WBO belt. But but yeah, regardless, I can't take nothing away from Floyd. I mean, Floyd fought a Floyd pretty much, like I said, it took him a while to get going because he was a little bit tentative, and himself was also aware of Manny's power. But once he did that, once he adjusted, he figured them out. It was a wrap. So I can't. My hats off to that on pretty much on that performance. As for Manny, I was a little disappointed because, like I said, I mean, you would think that for a fight like this, he would at least go for broke, and he should have. I mean, there was definitely times where he could. I mean, he could have really pressed the action more, and he didn't because he was just either too tentative or he was just thinking in the back of his mind, that hey, you may walk into a counter shot. And then also too, what I didn't like was the fact that he was making excuses in his post-fight interview. I mean, usually that's not typical. When he got beat by, this was not a robbery by any sense of any sense of the imagination. Like he lost the fight, you know. Hell, if anyone actually had it any closer to 116, 112, I would say they were hardcore standing or they don't know shit about boxing. And like I said, I didn't like the excuses that were being made, and then afterwards too, just said that his right shoulder was messed up. I mean, that's all good and well. I mean, but you're fighters though. You go in the ring, you do what you have to do, and it's not like he didn't get compensated. I mean, Manny probably made somewhere between 100 million and 120 million last night for 36 minutes of work. So if you're gonna make excuses, you know what you have to do. I mean, if you wanted to postpone this fight, you should have postponed it. If you had a shoulder injury, don't try to cheapen the win by just by writing off any type of excuse. So I was disappointed at that. Now my thoughts on the legacy of this card going forward. I've made it clear that I wasn't a big fan of how this card played out, how it was promoted, this card could have been a lot better than what it was. I'm talking about a lot better. Considering the roster that Heyman has, at least Top Rank at least was thinking. They had Lomachenko on there. Like I said, he is an actual star. And he's an actual star that does deserve his push, to get more of the casual attention, to get more attention on him. But this card needed names. It needed something in the vein of the Mayweather Canelo card. That card. It had Swift versus Lucas on the co-main event. Something to really sell, and something to even sell the pay-per-view even more. And then, of course, you had Ishe and Cosman, which wasn't a great fight to watch. And then you had Theophane and I forgot his name. And I usually have it. I usually have it at the tip of my tongue. Kano, yeah, there we go. On there, but yeah, this fight didn't have any of that. And it sucks too because this card had all the mainstream attention in the world. You saw it during the whole pay-per-view. If you watched it, you saw everyone there. You had there was you had Michael Jordan. You had all these stars. You had Mark Wahlberg. You had Puffy. In a hilarious moment, probably you had the thumbs up moment was watching Chuck and Reggie completely annihilated beyond belief, given a struggle interview, and they could barely keep themselves upright. It was hilarious. Poor Reggie was kept on holding on to Chuck and whatever, and they were just gone. That was probably the only time I really laughed. And then you have Denzel with his Ron Washington mustache, not really, and unfortunately not having a clue really. And it was painfully clear he didn't have a clue what was really going on in boxing. I mean, because they were trying to get him to answer some questions. He dude really didn't know how to answer them. Um, so yeah, that was the one thing about that. I mean, it was just too Hollywood driven. I mean, the actual fight fans. There were tickets available. I mean, when you're hearing tickets that were going from probably at the minimum like 1,200 to somewhere like 5 or 6 figures, it's like what the fuck. I mean, this is. I mean, what are we trying to attract here? Um, wasn't a big fan of the promotion. Wasn't a big fan of the undercard. The undercard should have been a lot better with the attention it has on it. Because now, what I'm reading now is, I mean, pretty much if you're on social media, you'll see a whole lot of. It's pretty much 50-50. 50-50 is like, hey, Floyd, Floyd's number one. TMT, money team. 48-0 all day, all that other stuff. And then you have others on the other side that are like, this is it's the biggest bullshit ever, and I'm mad that I paid $100, or I think I'm gonna go back to UFC, stuff like that. Like they didn't understand, and that's the stuff that I personally I hate reading the boxing is dead stuff because it's not dead. I mean, if it was dead, then these boxers wouldn't be getting paid the way they're getting paid. It's just unfortunately that the top stars at the level when they actually when they got together. While it was a good fight, make no mistake. I personally, like I said, I'm a big fan. Like I can appreciate technical boxing, and I like what Floyd did. Was it entertaining? Was it exciting? No, it was not. Not in the way it should have, especially not with the hype that it got. Um, This fight needed a fight that will transcend boxing, something exciting. It did not need another Oscar Tito type of fight, and that's what this pretty much is. This is what now that fight is. That is this generation's Oscar Tito fight. Um, so yeah, the legacy of this card probably will not be and will not sorry, I got distracted there. Will not pretty much will not be it's not going to be too what's the word I want to use for this too kind in the future going forward. I mean, it's just going to get it's going to get lampooned. It's going to get torn apart. I know it's going to get torn apart now. Right now, I'm pretty sure Files is, and I know any other cable provider they're probably getting all types of messages saying, "Hey, I mistakenly ordered this fight. Can you remove it off my charge?" That type of stuff. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I wish the fight and I wish the card was a little bit more exciting to watch, but it was not. I mean, we got what he got. It was a cash grab. Floyd made 200 million or whatever. Pac made 120 million. Everyone involved in the fight got stupid rich. And Floyd is going to say he's going to fight in September, and then he's also said in the same breath that he's going to give up his belts, all 5 belts he owns, the welterweight and then the light middleweight belts. One thing though, I also did not like in the fallout of this card was I went to ESPN because I was still trying to sober up, so I'm over there on ESPN. I'm just eating my celery and carrots ranch. And I've never seen such unprofessionalism before in my life. Like there was some serious saltiness going on. I mean, keep in mind, I'm not a Floyd Mayweather fan. I mean, I admire him on the box level, and that's pretty much where it stands with him. I don't go any further with him in terms of that. I mean, but the fact that everyone pretty much with the exception. I mean, Stephen A. I mean, it's whatever. I mean, his dude's opinions on boxing are really, they're either there or there. I mean, pretty much everyone who kept it extremely real was B-Hop about it. And B-Hop kept it real, and then Paulie had the nerve to say, Manny was a sore loser, which I laughed out loud. Considering, I mean, if you know Paulie Malignaggi, his career and the stuff that he's actually done and said, that it's pretty much an oxymoron what he just said. It's also or ironic too. But yeah, it was just so unprofessional. Like watching some of these personalities just verbally rip apart and like say, "Oh, it's boring. This is not Ali. It's not Mike Tyson." No, he's not. He's not. He's never been any of those things. Well, Yeah, he's never been any of those things. I mean, he was a puncher in the lower divisions, super feather at feather, lightweight. You know, he was a puncher there. But yes, unfortunately, yes, you know, the leading fighter of this generation is Floyd Mayweather. He's a fighter who uses his brain more than his brawn. Yes, and in the sport in this particular sport, um, people should have really have given him his due, and I was disappointed to see that that was not the case. Um, during the post fight stuff for ESPN. So yeah, I mean those are my thoughts on the fight. I guess we'll see where both of them go. I mean, Floyd says, "Hey, one more fight in September, that's it." So it's gonna be pretty much now who's gonna be opponent at 49, or what Pac's gonna do is is he going for shoulder surgery and then coming back? We don't know. But unfortunately, like I said, this card should have been the card to have pushed in of course in line with the other stuff that's been happening with other boxing, with Al, what he's doing with PBC, or what Top Rank is now trying to do with True TV, having all these boxing, and then I know Rock Nation is about to have Andre Ward fight on BET of all channels. I mean, this should have been the big crown jewel in the effort of trying to get boxing more into TV, more into network TV, all these channels, And I have a feeling that this fight may have hurt that efforts just a little bit, unless those fights on those other type of cards, end up being something legendary. But that remains to be seen, and then also remains to be seen what happens with Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao going forward. So yeah, those are my thoughts, and till next time, peace.